Okay, we're going to call a meeting to order. This is the Drum Point Property Owners Association's general membership meeting. Robert's Rules of Order apply. Please be acknowledged before you speak. And we are being recorded. We have 4 of these a year for those of you who don't know. Most of you are familiar faces, you probably already know that, but just so you know. And we always put the sign up on the entrance and advertise it in the newsletter. So, we'll get started here. First order of business is where I get to talk. President's remarks. I am going to very quickly make a couple of remarks about some letters that have been sent to the editor and to the county about the way we do business. And a couple of the things that I read disturbed me, and I thought you should have an explanation. One of them is a suggestion that we're carrying over too much money. That we, being Drum Point Property Owners Association, and the way that was worded would be true if you take it on the face of it. However, it alludes to all of our assets, and our assets include real property and money that we haven't been able to collect, which skews that number, makes it look a lot bigger than what it really is. You'd have to sell the property out and try to collect the money, which we try to do anyway, and to get to the number that's talked about in that letter. But there's a way to figure out what we have and how much money we're carried over. And I'll tell you right now, we are carried over some money. We have roughly $171,000 in DPPOA funding that is going to be carried over into next fiscal year. Since we're 1 day away from the end of the year, you can pretty much count on that. If you look on this piece of paper that says balance sheet, I would direct you down towards the bottom of the page where it says equity, and it says net income. It's $171,358.87. That's what we're going to have left at the end of the year. We did not budget to spend that. It is money left over from this year. It's not a bad thing, though. I mean, it's basically a year's worth of income that will be sitting in the bank waiting for us if we have another storm emergency or some emergency where we needed the money. Which takes me to the next allegation, which is that we can spend the money any way we want, irregardless of what the bylaw says, and we're hiding money and spending money outside the guidelines. All of our books are wide open. They always have been, and they are today. You can come in the office anytime you want to look at them and see where we're spending the money. The bylaws restrict this board from spending money beyond 15% over the approved budget, which you will approve tonight, I hope, without approval by the general membership. What does that mean? Yeah, we can spend some money above and beyond what's been budgeted, as long as it doesn't overrun 15% of a category. And the categories are basically administrative, operations, and capital. So there are some restrictions. They're not onerous. They give us a little wiggle room to be able to spend things. Everything is documented. We are audited every year. So I guess I shouldn't belabor that. We are, I think it's safe to say that we're not squirreling money away or anything like that. The next one is, we're charging administrative costs against the covenant's income unlawfully. Well, let's think about that. So it is true that the covenants say that covenant money is to be spent on roads for road construction, maintenance, and repair. It's absolutely correct. What does it take to construct, maintain, or repair a road. Most of the time, it's a project. For us, we have projects. This year, we're proposing roughly $130-some thousand in a project. We have a lot of smaller projects run from $1,500 to $5,000. We have several of those throughout the year. But in addition to that, we mow the right-of-way. That's part of the road's maintenance. We fix potholes. We repair and replace signs and all those things. And how do you think those things happen? They happen because Maria makes them happen. She's not here, so she can't take them out. But that's administrative costs. And to say that it would be inappropriate to bill administrative costs that are directly related to work being done on the road just doesn't make any sense to this board anyway, and that's why we do that. It certainly is appropriate and proper. I'll be glad to answer any questions about any of that. If anybody has any questions about anything you've heard and you think needs to be answered, please ask me. I probably will be prepared to answer it. If not, I'll find an answer for you and get back to you. Okay, next, oh, two more things. I don't know if you guys remember last meeting, we talked about the county was sneaking up on us, ordering us to pay for street lights that they've been paying for since 1972.
I think so.
All of a sudden, hey, what are we doing? Well, they're kind of right. There are street lights. But when we went through our budgeting process, we were getting ready to finalize the budget and get it ready to bring to you guys tonight. And we went to the county and said, well, you know, what's the deal? Are we going to do it or not? And they said, no, we're not going to do it this year. And then they sent us a letter and said, oh, by the way, you're going to have to do it this year. And then they retracted that. So the short answer is, as I speak, they're not going to do it this year, but they intend to do it next year to give us a year to think about how and why, you know, what the whole process is going to be, what funding would pay for it, and that sort of thing.
Gary?
And that's it.
Could I just
Yes.
make a quick comment? Long Beach got a letter from them too, the community, that they had to pay for the streetlights. In Long Beach, the income is limited to $5 per property. So they don't have enough money to pay for the streetlights, even if they just took all of their revenue from their properties. So they expect to turn off the streetlights. And I had a discussion with them about the pending lawsuit that would occur the moment the first crime occurred when the streetlights are off, and that the county would be sued along with the community for failing to provide public protection. And I think the same concerns would apply in any of these communities where the streetlights are threatened or are turned off actually on a private road, that it becomes a public problem for the public, and the first police call exceeds the cost of the streetlights for the year.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not that expensive, although we have 81 of them. 81 streetlights, can you believe? Plus a number that's not far off of that private streetlights that you all pay for that someone has had installed. At any rate, it's roughly about $12,000 a year. And that's all I have for President's remarks, so we'll move over to the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
So the motion is to approve the minutes that have been handed out. And second, do I have any discussion?
I have one question. What
Yes, sir.
happened to the minutes from the March meeting, or is there not?
There was not a quorum at the March meeting, so we decided to have a special meeting, and we did it in April because we needed to get the nominating committee, or the nominating
Discuss the
candidates
quorum.
announced.
Okay.
Slate candidates.
Just, yes, sir.
I'm not sure if it's related to anything, but as far as the maintaining the ditches, the actual drainage ditches around here, I have talked to the SHA, I have talked to the Highway Administration, I've talked to everybody. These guys came out and they're trying to fix the ditches. We have mosquito problems, standing water, and it's just, nobody around here knows it. The simplest thing in the world, the hardest job. the ditch digger. They don't know how to do it. And every time they come out, they make it worse. I don't know who's responsible for it, because they say it's on the homeowner association, they say it's on the actual SHA, and then they tell me it's the highway administration. All three of
Yeah.
them, and they send out these guys that are supposedly these hydraulic specialists, and they tell me the water's flowing the opposite way in my front yard. And I just want to break out a hose and basically kill the man's pride. So it's just.
Well, we can talk about this, this is not germane to what we're doing right now, but we can talk afterwards. For those of you who don't know, we have roads in our community that are Drum Point property, property owners own lots that aren't on our privately maintained roads. Some are on state roads, some are on county roads. But we can talk, and we have a way that we might be able to help you with that. Okay, so that was out of order, but I'll let you get away with it. So, any more discussion on the minutes? So I'll take away all those in favor of approval of the minutes, raise your hand. And all those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next thing on the committee reports, and this is our budget, which has been handed out. That's this document. And I'm sure you really haven't had a chance to dig into it to any extent. But to help you understand it, we also handed out the combined, where did I put it? The combined, hold that up, would you read it, so that people understand? The combined
It's staple, well, mine is staple.
budget, which is really much more germane to what we're doing. We're only voting on, here it is. We're only voting on this, which was posted in the newsletter, but this is a very clear picture, this one, of all,
Gary,
Oh,
it's
shoot, I
this
held
one on
it
the
wrong.
spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet, so it's gonna have grades on
here
it.
it is down here. Here it is, I knew that.
All in.
It's on two sides. This shows all of the line items by all of the revenue streams. So if you read across the top, it talks about STD, the SURE money, the covenant income, the mandatory assessments, and then the total. And then down the side and onto the back are all the expense, all the income and expense items for each of those. This is a complete picture on one page, front and back, of what DPPOA is doing or hopes to do next year.
What's the difference between the two? This one does not include the STD.
That one only is covenants and mandatory assessments. Doesn't include SURE. Is SURE on there too? I'm sorry, you really don't.
So you got SURE covenants and mandatory assessments on which
I'm sorry, SURE
you
is.
got SURE.
You have the SURE on there just for informational purposes, but you're only voting on the associated
You're voting
assessments.
on how this, per bylaws, what the general membership is voting on is how we're going to spend the covenants and mandatory assessments next year. And that's why it's on a separate piece of paper. This one, though, again, tells the whole story for everything, including the STD. Yes, Dennis?
How does this proposed budget stack up against actual for this current year? We have actual numbers here.
Yeah, it's,
The budget hasn't, are we spending a little bit more, a little bit less?
actually, we're spending a little bit less,
Planning to spend a little less?
just a little. It's virtually the same, however, the numbers have moved around.
Yeah, different
Uh,
categories change.
So to explain the process we go through in deciding what the budget will be, we do what's called zero-based budgeting, or ground up. We start off with the office sitting down and going through the bills from last year and the profit and loss statement from the previous year, and looking at where the money was spent, and go through every line item and answer several questions. First of which is, do we need to spend this at all? The second one is, if so, how much did we spend last year? And if not, how much do we think it's going to be next year? And if we did, how much next year? So we go through all that, we answer that for each question. And then the office puts out their recommendation to the planning committee. The planning committee then reviews it, makes recommendations, may decide that maybe we're planning on doing too many projects or not enough projects. Gets their input, their cut on it, sends it over to the finance committee, which does the same thing, which sends it on to the board that does their same thing and approves it, and then it comes here. So it's gone through a process. So yes, the numbers, it's a little bit less than last year, and the numbers are moved around in some of the expense categories.
Earlier you mentioned the 171 net income that's carrying over.
Yes,
And that's explained on this
on the balance sheet.
P&L statement on the balance sheet.
On the balance sheet.
Then there's another exhibit that's also called profit and loss by class.
By class.
And what strikes me is that the bottom line is don't equal each other.
That's because the profit and loss by class is for information purposes, not meant to be,
But the net income, you're showing the net income at the end of it that should agree with this.
no, because it's not done, it's not calculated the same way.
Well, but Gary, that's why you get into criticism, because you got things like this that don't, there's no explanation behind them and they don't equal each other.
Well, the explanation behind the profit and loss by class is not meant to be a document you would rely on for the actual numbers. You would use that profit and loss balance versus actual and the actual balance sheet, budget versus actual and actual balance sheet. And in fact, the one thing you really ought to put your hooks into and hang your hat on is the balance sheet.
Well, depends on what you want to look at.
And let me,
That gives you a complete picture of all your assets and your liabilities
that's true.
and your retained earnings.
Right, and the P&L budget versus actual tells you where you're spending money and what the income is.
Right.
The by class expands it to what money is being spent by each class of income.
Well, I understand that, but when you add it all up, the answer ought to be the same.
Yeah, I thought so too.
This is looking at it.
I thought so too, I'm just explaining to you what our, because we had a meeting with our auditors on the 23rd of June. Is that the same question? And they said, you can't do that. I'm just telling you what the auditors said.
Should be able to.
By the way, we got a AAA rating, they like what we're doing, probably. So, yeah, okay, I hear you, but, they're saying, because this by class is not an accounting form, it's really for information only, not meant to be used in the way you're trying to use it.
Okay, well,
Then why don't we have the correct profit and loss that is the one we should be?
You do, it's budget versus actual.
well,
It's on the back of the balance sheet.
okay, but no matter how, the reason you do something like class is so that you can give a lot more detail into where you're actually spending your money, or where your incomes are, or where you're spending your money. Once you add it all up, the answer should be the same. If it's not, and these are way off, I mean,
They're off because we don't realize the income from the STD.
There you go.
Profit and loss by class,
the STD is on here.
not on the profit and loss by class.
Yes, it is.
Not by
Yes,
class.
he's
It's
got
got
it.
STD operating and STD projects.
Because it's a,
That's expenses, not income. It's not there, I'm sorry.
not on the profit and loss.
Okay, you're right.
And there's a reason for it not being there, and that is can I have order, please? Order, please? Order, please. The reason there is no income shown on profit and loss by class is because the STD is not an income stream. it's a reimbursement account. It's different. But on the profit and loss by, I'm confused myself, on the balance sheet, I think, it is reflected. I've got too many stupid sheets as
Okay,
accounts receivable,
I stand
county held
corrected.
STD.
I stand corrected. Now that you've explained that, with the fact that you're not showing any income on the class, but you are showing the expenses. So the net is, if I take that negative 49,000, which shows up as a loss on the class, that shows up as a total loss. Now, if I add the STD income back into that, which is the 221, then I'll come up with the 171.
Okay.
So that's the explanation, but it would have been, it'd be clearer if it would just show that. There's no reason not to show that on the STD. That way it's a clear picture, and you can look at your class totals and look at your summary totals, and they will agree.
Are we okay then?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, sir.
Question, how many paid employees are there? One?
One,
Order, please.
yes.
I'm sorry, say again?
How many paid employees?
One.
But the payroll...
But we do have casual labor.
Okay, and the payroll charges are $7,000? Does that mean to pay that person it costs us $7,000 in payroll fees, like ADT or somebody that generates a check?
It's not entirely payroll charges, it's employers' expenses. Can you tell us what's exactly?
It's the employer portion of the, like, the Social Security and so on.
Well, but that's listed
It's
here as
also-
payroll deductions.
No,
It's
that's-
part of the deductions, it's the employer portion of the deductions. It's also workers' compensation, not just for me, but for others, contract workers that we have to cover. It's also paying our accountant to process the payroll.
So
So-
where we have the CPA and audits, that $4,500 is in addition to paying the accountants?
Correct.
No,
That 4,500 is for the audit.
Paying payroll, not accountants. In the payroll section, which is what you were talking about, the 7,000,
Yeah, $7,100.
it does include us paying for payroll activities. And then the other that you talked about, which is for our accountants, is for their services and audits. So they're separate.
Okay.
Other questions?
I had can we talk just for a moment about the road paving rejuvenation charges? That's a substantial amount on the
Yeah, well,
expense.
it's slash rejuvenation.
And what portion of that is rejuvenation part, and what portion is the paving part?
Good question. It's all paving. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. But we wanted to make sure that there was a line item that could be covered in rejuvenation in years going forward if we wanted to do that. That's the only reason it's there.
There's on the all-income stream budget, there's a information systems, and there's a $3,500 that's coming out of the mandatory assessment line, and then the total though is $1,500. Is that just a typo or?
Yeah. It's got it.
What are you looking at?
On page 1 of the all income streams, the 2-page document, right in the middle is called Information Systems, Mandatory Assessments. It's 3,500 and it didn't get carried over properly. However, the total.
It was changed sometime after.
Okay, so it's a
I don't have an explanation, so it's a lost shoot.
total, is the total correct? 1,500?
3,500.
3,500.
Good stuff. Anything else? Jerry?
Gary, 171,000 of the carryover. How is that cranked into the new budget?
It is not
It just stays as carryover
this year.
for
Emergencies. It's money that, think of it as reserve.
so that is the intention
I
is
don't like to call it
that, is the
reserve.
intention to always carry a sum around that?
The
amount
intention-
For contingencies or?
It is my intention, and I think good fiscal practice to try to keep a year's worth of income in the bank, ready to go if you need it. And that may change. And I mean, next year, we might decide that we're gonna spend all or part of that. But
And if it
if we
exceeds-
spend it, you won't have it if you really need it.
If it exceeds the 15%,
Well, yeah,
Now,
if
then there'd
if
have
we
to
were
be
to
a-
spend, if we want to spend another $100,000, let's say,
it would have
on
to be a
with
special,
us.
special meeting to,
Thank you. We'd be
Okay.
right here talking about it, and you guys would have to
okay,
approve
so
it.
that's how you would handle that if it
Yep.
exceeds the 15%.
Yep.
Why was it, do we know why we were so far off on this year's income versus budget?
Yeah,
I mean, did we luck out and we had,
That's part of
didn't
it.
have some big expenses, or did we just not do a good job budgeting, or?
and things didn't work, and out exactly as we thought it was going to. Yeah, there's a variety of things. And it's against, if you look at it in the profit of the budget versus actual, it's almost universal. Almost everything was underspent. A few items were overspent. But we're short, to make a good point, we were short in every category. We underspent in every category. A lot of that was just us still having the belt tightening frame of mind from the last 4 years.
Now, if that were to happen again, and 171 is now 350 or something.
Yeah, well, we'd have a
would
trend
Would
that
that
we'd
crank
have
back
to-
into the assessments and things like that?
We would probably revisit our assessments
Okay, to get it
and
back
adjust
down.
them so that we're not taking money from you unnecessarily.
Yeah, because otherwise you run the risk of the county coming back and saying, you guys are rat-holing money, you're forward financing everything, and then you're losing track of it, and you can't manage your money. So you don't want that to happen.
I agree.
We don't need their help.
I think everybody on the board would agree with that.
Gary?
Yes, Jim.
Wasn't a part of that because our dues were raised?
They were
And
raised,
so you had more coming in?
and we still were collecting that's true, thank you, that's a good
Okay.
point. We were still collecting $150 from, remember it was a 3-year plan? We changed the mandatory assessment, then we changed the coverage, and then we went back, and this year we're reducing the STD. We were still collecting the STD. So we were a little flushed with money this year. That will work itself out as we go forward.
I just wanted to add to that, we've really pushed trying to collect back fees that people have owed. And I've filed a number of claims, and people have paid $400, $500, $600, $700 that they've owed for X number of years. So that's really added to the bank account more than it has in the past.
Yes, sir.
Just two questions as I'm looking at the balance sheet. One on long-term liability, you got an asset replacement. Is that a loan or something?
That asset-
paid for something that we
That
bought?
asset replacement account is earmarked for repairs to our boat ramp and our office primarily.
Okay, so then,
That's all.
so the liability bit is you've got money that's for some reason been restricted in use.
Exactly.
Okay, and
I'd like to see that.
And the other question, deferred revenues as a current liability, that's not making sense.
Canoeing?
You've got, under other current liabilities, you've got several deferred revenue accounts.
Yep.
I can understand AP, accounts receivable for things that happen to pay.
I'll be glad to explain it to you.
Not even-
So the question is about deferred revenue, and that is in the middle of the page on the balance sheet, under equities, liabilities and equity. Under liabilities, current liabilities, it talks about deferred revenue covenant, deferred revenue mandatory assessments, deferred revenue covenants for 2018, and then the road bonds. The we'll start with the road bonds. Road bonds are money that's collected for people that are going to be doing construction. And we think they may just damage our roads, so we collect money from them, hold it until they're done, and have it, so we give it back to them, so we can't spend that. The deferred revenue, because we are accrual accounting, not cash accounting, we changed this as new, so it would not be familiar to, but accrual accounting is, if you collect money before the end of the fiscal year for the following fiscal years, you have to account that as deferred because it's earmarked for the next year. And that's what that is.
What I would call prepaid. Same like concept.
Right. There's a whole lot of other things involved in accrual accounting.
That makes sense.
Okay. Are we ready? Call for the vote. All those in, one last question.
Minor
Go ahead,
last
Mike.
question. This has to do with the difference between, I think we call it road repairs and all the other bigger chunk of road money, which is resurfacing. Is that just for little potholes and stuff?
Yeah, it's done by casual labor.
And that seems to be adequate to cover that. It has been.
It's been about that or less, yeah.
So all our major stuff is done under the, okay.
Okay, so I asked for the vote then. All the, what am I doing? Rita, you let me do this. Take your ballot. This is not a hand vote you get. You have to actually vote. So tear your ballot in half and put the appropriate vote, yes or no, in the basket.
Church, yeah.
And we need volunteers to count the ballots. Does anybody would like to volunteer to do that? What you do? Anybody else? Ralph, would you watch over her shoulder?
I will.
Keep her honest?
Okay. Oh, I thought you yes, okay. Yes and one and no in the other? Wouldn't work, would it?
Did you get a ballot?
There's a gentleman there in the middle. Gentleman there in the middle. You got a gentleman in the middle here, two of them.
Say again?
Count, somebody to count.
Yeah.
June says she can do it, and Ralph's going to help her.
You guys want to come out here? Sure.
Okay, while the ballots are being counted, we'll move on. On the agenda, we have old business. And to my knowledge, we don't have any. Does anybody on the floor have any old business they'd like to discuss?
Are you going to announce the new members?
It wasn't planned. Excuse me, planned. Could we like to do that?
Well, they were here, so.
Sure. How about if I give you the floor, you can do it? 'Cause I'm not sure.
I think John, what happened to John? Oh, there he is.
Oh, I'm sorry. John and Libby.
What are you saying?
Oh, I can do that. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about new people. in the
Yeah.
community. So before we go on, as my fellow board member, Paula has reminded me, we just had an election. Those of you who remember, and we elected new members. And the two new members of the board are here. It's Libby Falls. Libby, would you wave? Everybody know? And John Rivero. Thank you very much. And Paula was re-elected. She was filling a interim position.
That's why they're both so attentive.
No old business? Nobody has anything? Yes.
I was just curious, is the cell tower that's gonna go up off of Beretta, is that still a go?
To the best of my knowledge, it's still in the works, working through the county's machinations. But I'll point out that it is not on Drum Point property, so I personally have not really followed it that much. But the club owns it, and so I hear through the club that it's moving along and will be built. It's infrastructure. If you want cell service, you really need to have towers. So. Not the prettiest thing. Do you want cell service now? Any other old business?
I have
Yes.
a question about something I saw in the newsletter, that Jeep that was doing the donuts on the beach. What happened to that? Is it
Yeah.
anything we can talk about?
Nothing happened about it. That's what happened.
Ah.
Unfortunately, because it was at night after dark and we were leaving the beach gates open at that time, and when you take pictures with our cameras, and we do have cameras down there, obviously we
I
took
know you do,
pictures.
yes.
But the infrared camera, unless it's positioned just right, will not take a good picture of the tag. So we weren't able to do anything about it. And frankly, it didn't really destroy anything. It just made ruts in the sand, which even out on their own wasn't that big a deal. However, we did have, since you brought it up,
Yes, let me hear.
we did have a case where some gentleman in a beige Ford F-150 four-wheel drive, he thought it was a good idea to either maliciously or perhaps he was just trying to move the picnic table, which are chained to the ground, with his truck. So it destroyed the picnic table.
Wow.
So right now we're down to one picnic table where we are commissioning someone to build a couple more picnic tables. And as soon as they're done, by golly, we're going to put them out there and have more picnic tables. A lot of people who live here enjoy that beach, especially on the weekends. But we do take pictures.
Good.
Be nice. Going to the beach. Some of the stuff is amazing. Just leave it at that. Actually,
X-ray.
people do the weirdest things in public. Okay, moving on to new business then. Any new business? So that's all we have is the budget, and that's it.
Amen.
Would you like us to drum up a controversy for you?
No.
Okay.
Well, we have time and we're waiting. Let's talk about the STD. Has anybody had a chance to look at the STD that's been submitted at $115 and understand it? There are questions about it? There'll be a meeting tomorrow night. You'll have plenty of chance to talk about it then if you want to. But yes.
Can you just put it in perspective historically what the 115 represents compared to the past graph that went up and down, up and down?
Sure. My history isn't all that, it's a little fuzzy when you get way back to the original ones. But the high STD or the taxes or fees that are taken out of your property taxes, the high was $192 at one point. The low was $50, which was mandated by the county commissioners. I think the average has been like 130 perhaps, somewhere in there. But this 115 was an attempt to make sure we had the funds we needed to be able to do the paving. It's primarily paving, and mixed in with the covenant fees. So when you put the covenant fees, that's why it's important to look at this combined report. Paving is spread across covenants, mandatory assessments, and the STD. So the money just doesn't come from one place; it comes from almost all of our revenues. Okay, we have the results. I see why we did this. We have one no vote. We have a total of 43 yes votes, 16 of which were absentee ballots. And there's 27 of us, 28 of us here tonight. So we did have a quorum, 43 yes, one no vote, so the motion carried. The budget is approved for next year, and I thank you for that. We're basically done. Is there anything anybody would like to talk about before we adjourn?
What time is the meeting tomorrow night?
7 o'clock at the Appeal Community Center. It's on Appeal Road at the very end on the right. It used to be, the library used to be there for those of you who've been around. Peter?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody who can go to go. The commissioners do spend a lot of time, I've been to these before, and they listen very carefully. And they also read editorials and whatever, and they have politics that they have to be concerned about. But the more people who stand up for the way our community runs itself and endorses it, is a good representation to the county commissioners that we know what we're doing, and provides confidence in their yes vote if they approve it. So I would really think it's important for everybody that can go is to support our own government here, and it encourages to be self-governing and gives the commissioners the confidence to do it our way. And I think that's very important. From time to time, we felt that they've sort of taken our governance away from us, and we want their oversight. They have our oversight. But I think we have to show confidence in our own way of doing things. Gary and the board have put in hours and hours and days of work in this, and I hate to see it negated because they don't have any confidence in what we're doing. We have an excellent board this year. We have another board coming in. We're just really, really good people who are dedicated. So many hours, free time to make our community what it is. So let's show support for our board. Show up at the commissioners' hearing meeting and show them that we stand behind what we do as a community.
There'll be a sign-up list. If you come, sign up, even if you just stand up and say, I think what we're doing is great. You don't have to have a speech or anything. If you're going to go, you might as well stand up and say what you think. Or if conversely, if you think what we're doing is wrong, please stand up and say that as well, because the commissioners are going to want to hear it. Kurt, you had something?
Yeah, this question is for the STD. The STD is strictly for 2017, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a one-year ask.
I guess.
Good point. It's a good point.
Would you explain why it's only a 1 year?
Thank you. I should have done that. The when we submit the what's it called? It's called
Petition.
petition. Thank you, to the county for the new for STD. We include a budget and a request for how many years we'd like it to run. In this case, we left it open-ended and thought it would be a negotiation with the county. And then this whole thing about the streetlights came up, and we said, look, let's just make it 1 year, and then we'll revisit it again. And they said, yeah, that's a good idea. It doesn't have to be simply 1 year. The way this works is when it expires next year, we can simply renew it, or we can bring a new petition. The county's not real crazy about these petitions. They have to spend a lot of money. And frankly, we spend a lot of money too. Every time we have to develop a petition and present it, we have to have meetings, they have to have meetings, it's a whole thing. And that's correctly so. So they don't want to do it any more than they have to. I'm not sure how and we go through the budgeting cycle next year, and we try to account for what the $12,000, where that's going to come from. We may decide that it doesn't have to come out of the STD. If you want to serve on any of those committees, by the way, please come forward. Love to have you on. We'll make those decisions at that point. If we decide that we don't need more money from the STD, hey Vince, glad you could join us. Vince is also on the board. We would simply kick the can down the road by saying we would like to just renew it, so we don't have to go through all of the stuff that's required for a new petition, and we could do that any number of years. Is that clear as mud?
I mean,
I'll be right to you. something else?
Well, I'm just gonna, okay, in your explanation about the charges for the streetlights, I mean, you talked about them telling us yes and then no, and then yes and no. Where does it stand now?
No.
I mean, we don't, that money is not gonna be charged to the 2017.
The Long Beach community was the deal breaker for them. When the Long Beach community came to us and said, what are you doing to us? We couldn't pay it if we had to. That was, and we basically said, flag on the play, you guys didn't give us enough time to plan for this, but they didn't care that we were going to do it anyway. But when Long Beach came along, which is a small community with very few number of people and very, very limited resources, they decided, well, let's rethink this, and kicked it for a year. We'll see what happens next year. It's not that much money from the county. I'm not sure why they're doing it. But that's what, right now it's no, we don't have to pay for the street light.
Good.
Well,
I just wanted you to say a little bit something about Joe Ruggieri's past.
Can't hear you, Paul.
I want Gary to.
yeah, Joe, for those of you who don't know, Joe Ruggieri, who has been a fixture here for years, I can hear him now standing up in the back and say, never one to keep quiet. He was a character. He's coached baseball his whole life. It seems past. A month ago?
About a month ago, right.
So Mrs. Joe's not here tonight, but our condolences to her. Anything else? Yes.
Yes, I'm actually new to the community. I haven't gotten anything yet. I don't really have a say in the vote, but I've actually taken personal responsibility to clean up the Riverview, the waterfront there. And I actually today, I'm pretty sunburned. I went and I moved the big, like 500, 600 pound boulders and put them back on the streets so people.
Oh, you're talking about down by Lake Vista?
Is that the one that the fish killed? They had the little lake. It's right by the.
Yeah, that's Lake Vista.
Looking at the.
Well, thank you very much. That's nice.
But I mean, it's just a matter of, is there any way in this committee that we can actually get like a trash can down there? One that's not removable, one that's put on post at 55 feet on the ground. Because I mean, it's just.
But we will.
Because they're going to use the place regardless.
Yeah, they fish down there. Everybody fishes.
But to keep it from being an eyesore, I mean, I've basically 3 full-size trash bags in the last 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. I'm surprised no one called and told us about it.
I wasn't.
I don't go down there very often, Sharon.
Yeah.
But we'll take that into consideration, see if we can do something. Jude?
Hi. I have a spot at the end of my driveway that's HOA owned. And between my neighbor and I, my neighbor doesn't have grass anymore. And so no one's mowing it. And the weeds are as high as my waist. Plus, it's like a cliff and it drops off into a ravine. And it's also got a lot of rock fill in, so you can't run a lawnmower over it. And now that I'm paying somebody to mow my yard, I really don't want to have to pay them to mow that. So can you have someone come out and take a look at it?
We sure will, but we do, when we come around to do the mowing of the rights of ways, we will catch it then.
I don't think anybody knows it's a right of way
Well,
down
that's
there.
supposed to.
Yeah.
The crew's supposed to be riding all the right of ways.
I have
We'll make
to
sure they come
remind
down.
my trash company to come down there practically every week.
I know exactly where you live. Fix that, will you? Your neighbor said he'd do it. No, I'm
Oh.
joking.
I'll have a lawnmower anymore.
No, you said you don't have a lawnmower anymore.
Well, I don't have any
Okay,
grass.
guys. Anything else? I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All right, we're out of here. Thank you, everybody.